Alright, howdy there fellow Shadow Priests. Welcome to, yet again, another patch. I forgot what it was called. 10.1.5.50585. Essentially, this previous patch that just came out on Tuesday, they nerfed Mind Trauma, so it's now 2% haste per stack rather than the 4% that they'd buffed it to, but you can stack it up to 9 times, which is not really tenable in Arena because you'll have to do 3 stacks on each target in Arena, and by the time you've tried to do that, all of your dots are off and maybe you're falling behind, you're not actually hitting the target you should be hitting. So it's just, I don't know, it's a little hard to play. I'm still playing it, it's a little wacky, but we're going to talk about 2 builds here that we can kind of rotate between, and the first one should look kind of familiar. This is something that I was messing with without Shadow Crash, so I was playing like, if I ever was in a matchup where I thought I could free cast, this is pretty much what I'd be playing right here. I would get Screams of the Void, Mastermind, Insidious Ire, Idol of Cthulhu is your only idol. You have Mental Decay. We dropped Psychic Link now because Psychic Link was also nerfed pretty drastically, and it's just not really adding too much on the meters for us to the point where it's worth taking. So if you really think you can free cast and Shadow Crash is not an issue for you, don't play Shadow Crash. Pick up Screams of the Void here. And Mastermind is actually feeling really, really impactful now. You can hit up towards like 170k mind spikes. I hit even like 180k. So definitely try to experiment with this talent. It's going to make your mind spikes feel a lot more impactful. But if you do need Shadow Crash, say it's like maybe a melee team or something, then you can totally pick up Shadow Crash, drop Screams of the Void. I think that is the best case scenario. You are going to deal a little less like overall DPS in terms of dropping Screams of the Void, but you're going to maintain your burst, which is really important for this build. You have basically 2 ways to burst, and the one is with Dark Ascension, Mind Spike, Insanity, just spamming those mind spikes to try to get those 100k plus spikes, and then the other is with Void Torrent. So outside of your Dark Ascensions and outside of your Mind Spike Insanities, or anytime you get a precog, really try to send like a Devouring Plague and a Void Torrent, and that's a great form of burst as well. So after I go through the next spec, we're going to show some video examples as well, playing each spec, and we'll start with one that looks a little bit newer. So new and maybe old. This is a Void Form build. This is kind of what people were playing previously in just the tournaments, like not Insidious Ire rather, but maybe the spec looked something like this. This would be something that if you inspected like Prev or Wizk during the AWC, they'd be playing talents pretty similar to these. Now you do have that option of picking up Insidious Ire if you think you're going to be able to free cast, but I think mostly we're going to want to use Void Form in matches where we feel like we'll be the target, people will be line of sighting a lot, and you know, we might have to cast some Mind Flays as people are running around the pillar. Yeah, this build is fine. Apparitions are going to deal like decent damage still, especially against like pet teams. You're facing like a DK, like a TSG. I would highly recommend testing this build out at the very least. Then you also have the option of picking up all 3 idols. Idol of Yogg-Saron is not amazing, but in a longer match where you're proccing it multiple times, it will still add some damage. So I'll put the link to this in the description as well, and then you can kind of experiment based on what you like. I'd say if you're playing Soul Shuffle, you probably don't want Yogg-Saron, and you can, you know, I can add a point into like Mindbender or Death Speaker if you'd like. Just make sure you're taking Teeth Evasion if you have Death Speaker. But yeah, essentially let's get into some content here. PvP talents, I'm playing Mind Trauma still, Catharsis, and Phase Shift, but if you're playing the Void Form build, it's going to be harder to get Mind Trauma stacks, so you might want to swap over to Psyfiend. Driven to Madness could be okay as well. You can experiment with your PvP talent. There's no one particular best talent, it just really depends on how you use them. So yeah, let's check out some games. First of all, let's check out the Void Form build, because I think we're going to be a little bit more familiar with the other one. So I just have some games. We streamed for 8 hours yesterday. It's unbelievable. Definitely check out the stream, twitch.tv/stopsp. I'll be out there. We'll go ahead and try to increase this quality too, so we can... Oh, does it get any better than that? I think that's all we got. No worries. I'll just talk about the opener here. So again, all we want to do is triple dot everybody. So I'm going to start with a little Shadow Fiend, generate Insanity, get my distance, grip my Druid out of their go, double dot these 2. Void Eruption. This is a great time for me to PI as well. PI, just start pumping out some single target damage. I do 1 full Mind Flay Insanity. That gives me a Mind Trauma stack. There could be an argument that Void Torrent would have been a better global there, but that's totally okay. And then from here on out, I'm just going to spam Devouring Plague and Void Bolt and try to stay in Void Form as long as possible. If you don't know this already, every time you devour and play, it extends the duration of Void Form by a few seconds. So generating Insanity, staying in Void Form is going to give you access to this Void Bolt, which is essentially your bread and butter of the rotation. It should be pretty high on your DPS breakdown. Definitely want to press it off cooldown, give you Insanity. It also give you your stacks towards Yogg Saron if you're playing that. Again, I don't think it's super high value. I would consider playing without it first, seeing how you feel. You really have to go late into dampening for this talent to feel impactful. So here I'm going to cast some Mind Games, free cast a Void Torrent. That's my first Void Torrent of the game, and I am taking that 30-second cooldown Void Torrent, so maybe I need to integrate that a little bit more. I'm trying to work Mind Blast into the rotation more because I do have those Shadowy Apparition talents as well. This is also a build that Forset wouldn't be terrible for. However, I've pretty much dropped Forset entirely, and I'm just sticking with playing with better stats right now. Another addition I've made to this Shadow Priest is I'm playing with Spore Cloak. And that's going to pair really well with Angelic Bulwark, so I've dropped the increased Mind Games damage talent, especially since I'm not playing Dark Ascension. It doesn't really feel like I'm going to be hitting any big Mind Games. I'll fade their little Grip Blind Go here, Stun Silence the Healer, just trying to keep dots up and spam a lot of Mind Flays. It is an Aug Evoker and a Frost DK, which is a strange comp, but I'm still able to get a lot of damage out and ultimately just try to this team. Feels like it's really hard to beat a team before they're so the more DPS you can do overall, the quicker they the quicker you win. Definitely think it's a good idea to always dot the healer. You're just going to add to your DPS and make a potential swap target down the road. So I'm free channeling these Mind Flays as they're running. This is another advantage of this spec, is if people are running away from you, you can channel with Mind Flay. It's also a little bit easier to fake with Mind Flay because you can get a couple ticks, generate some Insanity to get a little bit of damage off, and then go ahead and cancel that cast when you think you're about to get interrupted. Stun the Priest into silence, redot him, redot the Evoker, PI Void Form. Just look at my globals here. I'm trying to DP off cooldown, do a little Mind Flay. I'm doing the full ticks to get value out of that Mind Trauma. Feels really nice with PI to fully cast a Mind Flay. Top damage at the moment against 2 DKs, not bad, even though he is Frost, which is kind of weird. Felt like I was in Void Form for a very long time in the opener, just being able to stay into Void Form. Driven to Madness may have been really good here as well. I don't think I'm getting the most value on Mind Trauma, so I would consider maybe playing without Mind Trauma if you're playing Void Form. Because we're typically taking this setup when we're going to get trained, or there's like a melee cleave, like something annoying that we're facing right here. That would be even worse if there was like a Resto Shaman, right? Something with a third kick would be really, really annoying to deal with. So we're going to lock in Shadow Crash and just try to get as much damage off of those Void Forms as we can. We always want to combo PI with Void Form, I think, in this build ideally. And obviously we don't have a ton of burst with this spec, but what we do have is pretty consistent damage. We're not going to see any crazy numbers, but we will see, like, even passively, if we get CC'd, our apparitions will still be doing damage. We'll have dots on everybody. Yeah, it should be pretty nice for those like longer dampening matches. As you can see, we already the Priest, and we're just going to single target this DK down. Have to live every big dragon go here, so could be dispersed very high. I'm also going to cancel it and swap my DK so he doesn't get obliterated for 300k again. Silence the Priest. Just getting a Silence the Evoker because the Priest is Once the healers you can generally stop CCing them and go for like a more defensive playstyle. Try to silence casters, stun the melee, whatever. If they don't have enough mana to dispel, you can just slow their pressure down and try to outpressure them. Unless, of course, they still have mana, then you want to always CC the healer. And boom, that's pretty much the results of this game. I think they're going to lose shortly here. I'll get like my third pet of the game right here. I'm curious if I look at my damage breakdown afterwards and we can see how much Yogg Saron did. It doesn't do a lot on its own, but the culmination of taking all of the idols does add a little bit of overall damage. They might be like a couple 100k each, but as you can see, like 2500 MMR-ish. Top damage, not terrible. Played the spec a lot and found it to be really consistent. So here's a damage breakdown just really quickly. Your DP should always be pretty high. Casted a ton of Mind Flays here. This may have been also a game where Insidious Ire could have been used as well. I didn't really think that I could have done anything differently to get more Void Torrents off. My Void Spoik from Beyond, I think with 3 channels, and we won the game right as that third one came out, did 455k damage, which isn't a lot, but it's already more than Idol of Cthulhu, which we take every game anyways. And then obviously Echoing Void top damage there. There's no pets on the team either, so it's all damage to players. I think that's a good example of like what a void form game will look like. It's a lot slower. Again, it might be difficult to play like Yogg Saron and Soul Shuffle, but I think in terms of melee and just like surviving and keeping up with their damage, I think we definitely have a lot to offer with that spec. So let's go ahead and check out the mastermind. I'm just calling this the mastermind spec because it seems so strong. This is what Wizk, the Shadow Champion himself, told me he was playing. I had some games into him, and it definitely felt like we were able to... Let me see what my spec is. It looks like I just changed it for a second. It felt like we were doing pretty similar damage. The only difference is he had a lot more burst damage going on. So here I swapped to Void Form, and then I think, you know what? I can actually free cast against this team, so I'm going back to my Mastermind spec. If you can ever free cast, if you're playing a double caster comp especially, and you want to be nuking, this is your single best spec, I think, to burst with. So very quickly, just dot the DH. Going into dot the Moonkin. I don't want to get double stunned. I'm trying to silence the healer here. Dark Ascension. My first cast always after Dark Ascension is Mind Games. That's going to give you some good insanity as well as do a big single target hit. Obviously, Dark Ascension buffs your Mind Games. So then after that, I should have enough insanity for Devouring Plague. Go ahead and shoot. I'm trying to get Shrouds off first. Here we go. Devouring Plague. Mind Spike Insanity into the Void Torrent. Now, this is like the proper way to use Void Torrent, I think. You don't want to pop Dark Ascension and then Torrent because you're not really buffing your Void Torrent by doing that. And you also want to, make use of those single target damage spells such as Mind Spike, Mind Blast, Shadow of Death, Mind Games, all that stuff. So big Mind Spike into a Void Torrent. I didn't see how hard that one hit, but I can guarantee you it was over 100k. And then from here on out, we're just going to spam some damage. So I'm Mind Blasting, getting rid of those stacks, double dotting everything, triple dotting rather. Mind Spike, trying to get some stacks on the DH here. I don't think it's as important to play around like keeping 3 Mind Trauma stacks up at all times. Obviously, if you have the opportunity to do so, then you can refresh them when the time is right. But for the most part, I'm just focused on generating insanity and looking for proper CC. So we get a blind into a stun, into a fear. Now I use my Insidious IR here. I can see the Boomkin is trying to like get around the pillar a little bit, so I start channeling the Void Torrent with that Insidious IR, and this is going to be really meaningful burst. Now if I casted a Mind Spike, it would have just been line sighted, but this is where Void Torrent's able to get some value. Now that the Boomkin's lining, I'm going to go ahead and use this downtime, get a quick 6% haste just from the DH, and I see, okay, he's cloned, fuck it, I'm Mind Spiking the little pet, so I just got an extra 2% haste for 1 global while there was nothing to do. So Mind Games, doing back to my burst rotation, Devouring Plague, 2 Mind Spikes potentially. I should refresh my Mind Spike on the DH, but I don't there. We have Dark Ascension back up now. DH is going to kick me, so I'll give him a Mind Spike or 2. 1, 2. Pop my Dark Ascension, redot this guy. I'm trying to get in there. Ideally, I don't pop Dark Ascension and then redot, but it's fine. He melds, so we're going to go ahead and re-DP. Mind Spike Insanity into a Torrent. We're comboing that Torrent. Like, we're going to land one of our burst spells such as Mind Games or Mind Spike Insanity and then land the Torrent with the Devouring Plague buff up as well. He beams me here, so I'm going to try to get out, use some globals, rebuff, purge, dot the DH, dot the Moonkin again. This team really has 2 kicks, but I feel like we'll have the Evoker in so much CC I won't have to worry about the Evoker kick, so it's just a matter of like being far away from the DH, casting Mind Spikes here, big nukes again. I don't know how hard that one hit, but that was probably upwards of 100k as well. And although I didn't top damage this game like last match, all of the damage that I did was really meaningful. It was all like single target on the Boomy. I didn't really try to rot anybody too hard. I just focused on trying to get those Mind Spikes off at good times, lining up my CC, and yeah, going for the kill ultimately. Let's check out if I look at my damage breakdown. Hopefully we should be able to see how hard those Mind Spikes are hitting for. Oh, I guaranteed it was over 100k, and it wasn't, but an 80k non-crit is still pretty good. 65k Void Torrent ticks. Overall, not bad. And I guarantee you, if you play the spec, you'll have some games where randomly you do just get that Mind Spike proc or crit and win. You could also experiment with like 1 point in Ancient Madness, although I don't really think it's worth it. Overall, I hope you enjoyed these specs. I think they're going to be fun. Good look out there in the Soul Shuffle, and yeah, definitely Bulwark and Spore Cloak seem to have a good interaction. So I would, if you're dying a lot with the Desperate Prayer nerfs, I would try to work on that. Until then, I'm going to try to queue some more Soul Shuffle, and hopefully we can get some content for you guys on how to survive against double melee and work on a little guide for that. So thank you so much for watching. Hope you're enjoying these recent changes.